Okay, hey, my name is Trent Johnson, and I am going to be doing activity 3 from our textbook, which is analyzing the waveform and timbre of these different basic wave shapes. I could not download the sample files from the website, so what I did was I used my main synth plugin, MyTie, in Studio One, and I disabled oscillator 2, noise, both LFOs, character filter. I kept the envelope the same, turned off delay and reverb. So it's just a really basic, um, the most basic possible wave shape you can get from this plugin. There was one more wave shape. If I go to the website here real quick, pulse wave. MyTie doesn't have that, so I'm not going to be able to evaluate that wave shape today. But I'm working with what I can, with what I have. So, and for the actual musical portion, I used a synth part, kind of an arpeggiating part for a song I'm working on currently. So for the sine wave, I'm just gonna play the single tone first. It has kind of like a round shape to it, just kind of like if you were to put your mouth into an O shape and move your tongue back, like ooh. It's kind of the character you get from it. It doesn't really have much character. And I've found that when you try to use that wave shape in a mix, it can really add a lot of resonance where you don't want it. And so then I'll go ahead and listen to this arpeggiating sample. With the release I have set there, it almost makes it sound like a marimba or some sort of melodic instrument, which is kind of cool. I might end up using that in the future at some point. So if I zoom in here to the waveform of the single note, it looks pretty much exactly like the sample we see in the textbook. Now if I were to zoom in here, you'd probably get a different story. This envelope makes it look like the attack should be instant, but if you look at the waveform here, it looks like it takes a second to register to get up to its full amplitude right there, and then release. As for the samples in the textbook, it's really consistent with that. So let's go ahead and move on to the triangle wave. It sounds more like a video game sound, but if I use that word to describe it, or that phrase to describe it, I mean, that could apply to really any basic synth sound. But you zoom in here to the wave shape, I mean, it looks exactly like we see in the textbook as well. So let's just go ahead and listen to this, and maybe I'll get more ideas of how to describe it. I'd say it has more of a playful sound to it than the sine wave. The sine wave just kind of, like I said earlier, it doesn't have a whole lot of character, but the triangle wave, I could see myself using, and I have used it, and I really enjoy that sound. Um, it's not quite like a biting sound, it's still a pretty gentle sound, but it just, there's more there. There's more of a creative use for that sound, I'd say. Real quick, let's look at this waveform zoomed in. Interesting. Okay, that doesn't really look like the textbook. We see a lot of variation in the attack and sustain and release as well. It looks like, okay, so we're seeing that same up and down pattern. What chord is that? Okay, so that's our A flat major chord. Boom, 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 boom. Interesting. So yeah, I guess that's just probably a product of the envelope. Let's move on to the square wave, which I think, if I remember correctly, is going to be my favorite of the bunch. Okay, interesting. So it doesn't look exactly like the textbook. It's got a little bit of a wobble. I guess would be a good word to describe it, but on the textbook it's depicted as perfectly flat. So it's not quite like that in practice, unlike the sine and triangle waves. And that could just be my plugin. Oh, right there you can see the attack. Interesting. Okay, so let's listen to this. So yeah, this is definitely my favorite of the three so far. Sawtooth might take that place for now, but of the three, this is the most biting, and I think that would sound really good with some distortion on it. So let's go ahead and listen to the sample. So we're getting a lot of weird sounds. I think my release time might have been too long when I bounced it. It's going to be consistent through all of these. So they have kind of a weird characteristic to them. Normally what I like to do when I make synths is set it to monophonic, so then the notes glide into one another. That's my favorite thing. But these ones aren't like that, so it almost sounds like some sort of reverb. But I don't know, this wave, it I definitely get way more of a video game sound from this one. Um, and I think it's really enjoyable. It's really playful, more playful than the triangle wave, and I'm finding as we move up, they get more characteristic. Now this one is interesting. So again, I am seeing a little bit of that up and down, but not near as much. And it looks way more jagged than the original single tone. And if I were to zoom out, you can actually see every note at the attack time, which is set to 0, but it looks like it's still gonna take a second. Otherwise, it would probably just cut your eardrums open. Let's move on to the Sawtooth wave. Now, I actually use Sawtooth wave more than any other wave in my own music. I mean, that's just really nice. Like the square wave, it has a little bit of a jagged appearance there, unlike the sine and triangle waves. But I don't know, Sawtooth wave is fun because it sounds exactly how it looks and how it's named. It's just it just sounds dry and uncharacteristic there. It sounds like your computer just crashed while you were playing a song. Um, but if we go here, I wanted to listen to this with glide and monophonic on, because I thought that would just sound more fun. So this is gonna be the Sawtooth wave here. I'll put it right there next to the Sawtooth with the same sample, just in MIDI this time. So yeah, that's a little loud. It's pretty cutting. But I do enjoy that sound more, where the notes don't leak onto each other. I think that sounds cleaner, and I feel like there's more I can do with that. So yeah, let's go ahead and look at the waveform for this one. So yeah, like the others, it just, you can kind of see where it increases amplitude. You get a lot of little saw teeth, I want to say, in there. Kind of fun. Okay, so on to the white noise, which I already know I'm going to hate, but there's a lot going on in the higher frequencies. Actually, let's monitor this with an EQ to see what's actually going on in the frequency spectrum. Okay, so yeah, I heard correctly. It's just kind of more up in the higher frequencies. Which I think is not the case with pink noise, which we'll hear in a second. I mean, that's pretty consistent with what we see in the book. It's just random. Square shapes, which is interesting. But I think we might just be zoomed in really far, and which is why we're seeing those square shapes. Maybe because each one of these is a sample length. I'm not going to mess with changing the time base to actually check myself on that. I could be wrong. But yeah, I mean, it's like TV or radio static, you know. There's not much you could do with that besides maybe adding it to something else and making it really quiet. I would not want that in my song. It just sounds. I think the fact that there's a lot happening in the higher frequencies added with the stuff happening in the bass just makes it sound like something is broken. Uh, like a really low bitrate recording or playback. So I don't really like that sound. But here on the pink noise. Now this is something I could definitely see myself using. The fact that there's more in the lower and lower mids, it makes it sound more full and less broken. And there is enough detail going on in the high end, but not too much to ruin it or make it sound too cutting. Waveform looks pretty much the same. It doesn't center around 0 like, or I guess that's 0. What is this? Negative infinity. Right in the middle. I'm not sure I know the terms for that, but it's not as centered as the white noise is. If we look back here, where you zoom out a little bit, it's pretty uniform, pretty centered. The pink noise is not. It likes to fluctuate up and down a lot more. And that actually, I think, sounds more like a radio or TV static. The other one just sounds like broken equipment, really. And I kind of want to look at the frequency spectrum for that one as well. So yeah, a little more happening in the bass, and then it's very even across the board, and I think that just gives it a much more pleasing sound. So for the last section, I want to look at one of my own recordings. This is the same sample that you're hearing throughout the assignment, but this one has my own patch, my own synth patch on it, and so we'll listen and then analyze the waveform there. It also has some effects, I should add, some cutoff automation and some delay and reverb. So right there, I always get disappointed when I don't hear the drums kick in, because on the track that this is on, drums start going right there. But so yeah, let's analyze this waveform. So I think I made this, if I remember correctly. I can actually go and find it here, but I'm almost positive it is a mix of, yeah, Square and Sawtooth. So it looks like Sawtooth is panned to the right and Square is panned to the left. And if I go back here, yep, that's what you're seeing there. I really love this plugin because of the multiple oscillators. I know they make ones with way more oscillators, but yeah, I'm good with 2 for now. Also, I'm good with not spending a ton of money on Serum. Anyways, thanks for watching.